Zero Lounge. I'm Clyde Lewis. Let's hear it loud and proud for IdeoCast.com tonight. And we got a great, and you picked a fine show to come to tonight. I'll tell you what, I just got back from the 3-day trip, or the 3-day gathering called EsoZone. And that, a lot of people were in attendance at EsoZone. It was an amazing experience. Tonight you're going to see some of the things that happened at EsoZone. I have brought tonight some guests from EsoZone that were some of the chief speakers. In fact, tonight, I want you to give a big hand. We got with us tonight from Austin, Texas, Freeman. He's going to be out here in just a bit, so give him a big hand. A couple announcements I want to make. On the 27th of October, we are going to have a party here at the Ground Zero Lounge. We have some special guests coming for that party. We'd like for you to come. We would also like for you to be here at 7 p.m. The reason why is because the first guest is going to take the stage at 7 p.m. play and be on stage for at least an hour, and then the second guest will be here, and then it'll be karaoke from hell. It's going to be a different type of Ground Zero Lounge that night. Also, on the 18th of this month, we are going to Mount Adams at the UFO Ranch with James Gilliland. If you would like to participate in this, you can either go to my website, my MySpace site, which is myspace.com/groundzeroradio. We are going to be leaving from the Ross Island Grocery on Corbett, and that'll be at 3 p.m. on Saturday. We'll get up there probably right about sunset, and then from there we'll be doing our UFO sightings and all kinds of other fun stuff up there. This is our little paranormal experience for this Halloween season. So, if you're interested, either get with me or follow what I have on my MySpace page, because I'm going to be keeping that updated about some of the areas where we're going to be seen here at the Ground Zero Lounge. Okay, so without further ado, we got a lot of time. We haven't got much time, so we want to hurry up and get into our guests, and also get into a little bit of a slide presentation, and then some discussion here talking about what happened at EsoZone, talking about what's happening right now in the world. And first of all, I would like to welcome, he comes every year about this time. It's kind of like Santa Claus. It's kind of like, bringing him for Halloween, bringing him for the time of Samhain, bringing him for the time of when all darkness falls, and when the full moon is out, which it is tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please bring your applause for Rex Church from the Church of Satan here tonight. Go ahead, have a seat right there, Rex. That's perfect. And also, once again, from Austin, Texas, we bring from the Freeman Perspective, a television program that's broadcast in Austin, also a radio program that is on the Oracle Network. Please welcome Freeman. Freeman, go ahead, come on out here. The Freeman Perspective is a blog. You can search for it online at the Google. It's a blog, a wonderful blog. In fact, I'm finding that Freeman is a brother that I didn't know I had. He and I, we think the same, but we convey our messages in different ways. We found that out at EsoZone. And you've appeared on like Alex Jones, right?
Yes.
And what other things have you done? Tell us a little bit about yourself, because a lot of people don't know who you are.
Well, I do a TV show in Austin, Texas called The Freeman Perspective. You can check it out at freemantv.com. Been cast out into the Christian Patriot realm from an esoteric spirit, and just confusing the world all to hell.
So, what is your background? You were telling us about your background with what your knowledge is of Freemasonry, the Illuminati, several things like that. Tell us a little about that.
Well, my father was a worshipful master with the Kaiserslautern Lodge in Berlin. And as such, he was in Project Blue Book and chased flying saucers for the government. So all my dad left me with on that was, yeah, flying saucers are real. I was left with that. He also built nuclear missiles and was on the first killer submarine with Jimmy Carter. So I came from this perspective that this was already real. I didn't know that people didn't think it was real. It was my dad. And so I just took it from there, and life has led me along on a synchronistic path to where I ended up where I am today with the TV show and whatnot, and showing people what I've learned in the esoteric trail. I've had some crazy adventures predicting world events through esoteric symbols. And I'm most popular and most known for my deciphering of corporate logos and understanding what those actually
And you're involved in Codex Magica as well.
Yes, I've worked with Power of Prophecy, Tex Mars. We have a film out together, Codex Magica, which just magically disappeared from the internet. I don't know, you know. I have a few other films, the Freeman Perspective, which is 3 hours of just crazy madness explaining corporate logos, our goddess Columbia, high-tech stuff. I've did a major blog on Anna Nicole, Brittany, and mind control, and I have a film about that as well. And that got picked up by David Icke, and that was a big deal. And now he's using my artwork in his political campaign. I like that.
Fantastic. Freeman, try, give him a big hand. He's here tonight with us. So, what we want to do is we want to kick things off. Tonight's program we're calling Grounds for Baphomet, and you'll find out why as we progress through the show. Tonight, as I said in the beginning of the program, it is a full moon. It is October the 13th. And 13 is a very, very interesting number, mainly because of its significance. Usually if it falls on a Friday the 13th, we have reason to worry because it's kind of a very superstitious time. However, I'm going to give you a little bit of an education about numbers and how numbers affected us when we went to EsoZone. You know, dispensationalists, we've talked about dispensationalist sects here at the Ground Zero Lounge and how they fear Armageddon. And how Armageddon is spun out with all kinds of buzzwords like the Beast and the Whore of Babylon and 666 and what? There's so many other buzzwords and things that fly around, and we hear them all the time. And they're trigger words that somehow get into our subconscious and give us a sort of a sense of dread. Now, we don't want that sense of dread because, you know, we know that the future can be good. It's just we have too many other assholes telling us that it's not going to be good. Too many other people telling us that, well, this is what we hear, this is what I think, and this is what is going on. Well, what I want to do is I want to kind of push aside the dime store numerology and get away from that whole unrighteous devouring the planet routine. And what I want to talk about is I want to talk about how the numbers and what they mean, and why they show up in the Bible, why they show up in the Left Behind series, why they show up wherever they show up. And it's because there's an interesting mathematical sequence that we need to be aware of. First of all, when you talk about the 144,000 number that's there in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it's been interpreted as 12,000 anointed ones that represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, it's mentioned in Revelation chapter 7. Now, these passages are devoted to what happens after the opening of the sixth seal or the sixth dispensation. There are other synchronicities that you must consider in order to understand the future. Now, they're saying that in 2012, we are going to be seeing the sixth incarnation of the Son, which is kind of interesting. You have the sixth seal in the Bible, the sixth incarnation of the Son with the Mayan calendar, all these things we talked about at EsoZone when we were attending, and of course Freeman and I were basically on the same page, except we talked about it in a different light. And of course, Rex Church was also there to talk about it, and he talked about his Ragnarok engine, which we're going to get into in just a little while. But if you take us all down, you boil us down to carbon, we reduce all the way down to 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, and that of course is 666. The number of man has been known as the number 6, and this number is even shown to be that of man in Taoism. The number of man society is also numbered at 6, and the number of the world and the demiurge is 6, and this is all sacred stuff that people talk about. The book of Revelation also talks about 1/3 of the angels of the host of heaven rebelled against God, 2/3 remained, and they became man. Now, let's take this into consideration that those who fled God became the satanic. Now, you were telling me, Rex, that they chose to become satanic angels or demons. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, it's also interesting, too, that you have to talk about 2 divided by 3. You're using 2 and 3, 23 being the operative number here, coming out as the 666, so 2 divided by 3. What's significant about that is that you have these 2 separate symbols, which together form a number that has to do with synchronicity and magical divinity in being able to divine what appears to be random events into something that becomes providence.
Is anybody, a lot of people, are you familiar with the number 23 or the movie The Number 23? How many by applause have seen that movie with Jim Carrey? You know, that is all part of Discordianism. It's all part of Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger. It's all based on William Burroughs. A lot of fantastic magicians in their own right, and very much those who I've admired over the years. But as I looked into the numbers, I started seeing, as Rex had said, that 2 divided by 3 is 0.666. 6 cubed, or 6 times 6 times 6, is the number 216. 144,000 divided by 216 gets you a random array, or an infinite array of 6s. And then you round it up to 666. Then if you divide 144,000 by 666, you get 216, 216, 216 ad infinitum, and it goes on and on and on and on. Well, the number 216, or 6 cubed, 666, is the number of the oracle. Now, the oracle is this ball, or this eye of God, or the eye of the gods, or eye of Lucifer, Satan, or whatever you want to call it. It's usually the Holy of Holies. Now, we talked about that when we talked about 9/11, we talked about the stone, we talked about all those things. And it is 6 times 6 times 6. Now, if you take the Tower card, we talked about the Tower card in the tarot. The Tower card is the 16th card in the tarot deck. Okay? So if you have 2 of them together, 2 tarot cards that are 16 and 16, you have 2 16s. Okay? So if you have 2 towers destroyed, you have 2 16 destroyed, which is, of course, 6 cubed again. Now, there is a movie, and I don't know, how many people have seen the movie Pi? Now, in the movie Pi, it talks about the Kabbalists, and it also talks about this guy who's obsessed with numbers, and he can see patterns in the randomness, and he calculates that 216 is the lower key, or the key that gets you to God. The rabbis and the Kabbalists say to him, well, take a look at this. 216 are the 216 names of God, and you're thinking, well, this whole 216 thing is like, what the hell is all this about? Well, it's all kind of magical speak to get to that 666 beast number. In fact, the 216th verse in the book of the Apocalypse, so the book of Revelation, is actually in Revelation chapter 13, verse 4. And it talks about how they worshipped the dragon, and they called the dragon the beast. So the 666, 216 numbers conjure up the monster or the beast. And I know, Rex, you have something to say about that.
Well, 216, 6 plus 1 is 7. You have another 7 from the other 16. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 and 7 is 14. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 becomes the number of the magician.
23. 2 3s.
And it's only the magician that can actually make the dividing point here. And then you talk about Book of Revelation. You have St. John, who actually divined this material. Just from my own personal perspective, it's like being an artist who's been involved in apocalyptic material and creation as a sculptor and a painter. I am the offspring of what would be considered somebody who's already knowledgeable of the apocalypse, or at least had initiated that. My dad was a sculptor and a machinist, so he dealt with numbers constantly. His name was John. So I think and I was born February 23rd, which is...
I was born February 22nd.
So there's all these other synchronicities. And I think that once you are within a specific plane of resonance, when you are born under specific symbolic numbers which have power, because we have set them up that way, then you can't help but see these things that would simply become obvious. And I think that when you're living outside of that, it appears to be somehow miraculous. And the revelation of the method is about how these numbers all work.
Now, you've heard of the revelation of the method. We've talked about this. This is another type of word form or word phrasing where certain numbers, symbols, pictures, and artwork can reveal the truth, can reveal what is going on. And if you look, that's why when you come to Ground Zero Lounge, you're learning this stuff so that you're not surprised when stuff goes down. I've talked about how we right now live in what is known as a cartoon, which is a Mayan phrase meaning the time without time. 9/11 happened, they brought down the towers, which were the temporal towers, the 216s. When they brought those towers down, our time pretty much ceased. I mean, we're letting those towers hold us back from having a great future. In fact, there was a poster that I picked up at Esozone that does say, don't let the symbols of the past rule your future. And a lot of people are letting those towers rule our future and slowing things down. The towers, as I showed before, had a stone placed in the middle called the sphere. It was a representation of what is known as the Ben stone. The stone's numeric signature, of course, was 216, 6 cubed. It was a harmonic stone for strength, completing the sacred geometry, and also it was the place where the goddess was supposed to come and land in the apocalypse or in the future. I talked about the tarot cards as well, and how when you see these cards through the mind of a magician, you start seeing some parallels. You start seeing some very interesting things happening. The moon card represents bad omens. We have a full moon tonight, as a matter of fact. That is exactly, I don't know if we planned it this way, but it certainly is interesting. As you see the pictures of the two towers on this card, and flames falling from the sky, a wolf and a dog warn the moon that the beast comes from the water. The card is the 18th card of the tarot. 18 being the sum of 6 plus 6 plus 6. The beast comes up from the water, and we are now in October, which is the symbol of the scorpion. And as you see, the scorpion is coming up to meet the moon. Do you have anything to say about that, Rex?
Well, as we all know, the symbols of the zodiac are attributed to and have rule over different physical aspects of the body. And the scorpion rules the anus. So, we're talking about star-shaped object at the bottom of the body. So, you are talking about a rulership by the demonium, which comes up from the bottom of the kundalini, the bottom of the serpent, and then rises up out of that. And that's exactly the same thing that you're seeing in that card.
When you see the card, too, you're looking at the card of confusion and anxiety and apprehension. Now, what I'm showing you is something from the Rider-Waite Tarot card. It was created by Arthur Edward Waite, who was a Mason at one time. The moon has 16 chief rays, if you notice. There are 16 rays that are around the moon, and then there are 16 secondary rays that are falling from, which is another 216. And the diameter of the moon, for those who are keeping track, is 2,160 miles in diameter. It's almost like there's intelligence behind all this. Am I right? I think I'm right there. We talk about the death card, even more compelling when you take a look at it, because what you're seeing is the white horse coming in, making change happen. I think it's significant that we have a black knight on that steed. Also, if you look carefully, you see the two towers have been restored. The sun shines on the towers. The new eon change is happening. The moon child, which is the young prince, is still alive. But we see the king and we see the goddess getting ready to pass away. The idea of the goddess or the water goddess or the moon goddess is ready to die off. Now, the moon goddess has several names. We've talked about Diana being one of the names of the goddess. We could also say that the goddess Isis, or the Isis Mary, the goddess of the moon, the waters, and the sea. We've got Ishtar, another name for the goddess. Astarte, another name for the goddess. But my favorite name, and the name that we're going to focus on today, is the name Columbia. How many people have heard of the word Columbia? By applause. Now, Columbia is another name for the Statue of Liberty. The idea of the Statue of Liberty is very metaphoric when you consider when the plans and plots are first put into power, we start seeing the death of Columbia. The change is about to take place, and this will ultimately kill liberty. Ultimately kill Columbia. That is what we see in the future. Today is Columbus Day, or Columbia's Day. It's not named after Christopher Columbus. His name is Cristobal Colon. He did not discover America, he discovered Cuba. And as you can see, there are plenty of Columbias all over the world. This one has been taken in France. There's also one in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I went there. It is the symbol of the goddess Columbia. Columbia is also considered the death goddess. We'll have Freeman talk about that in just a minute.
It's also the name of the river that runs straight through Oregon.
Yeah, exactly.
And runs right out through Astoria.
Sure.
Which is where I was born.
Our nation's capital sits in the District of Columbia. We do not sit, the capital of the United States is not in the United States. The District of Columbia is a special place set aside where decisions can be made. Also, it is laid out in a huge pentagram. Pentagram, of course, the White House is sitting at the head of the pentagram. The inverted pentagram is considered a satanic symbol. It represents the goat of Baphomet. Ladies and gentlemen, we brought with us Rex Church to discuss this. Tell us a little bit about it. Now, one of the things I noticed when I was at EsoZone about you was that, remember I was talking about the towers and how there's power and the I guess the brain source or the Ben stone is right there. You have two towers on your head, and in the middle, what's in the middle of your head?
The symbol of the destroyer, actually. It's the pitchfork, which also is the symbol of the it's the symbol for Pisces, it's a symbol for Neptune, it's a symbol for Cthulhu, it's the
symbol of the beast coming out of the water, right?
It was the symbol that Neptune used as a key to open up the gate that would allow the Kraken out. Yeah, it was the same symbol that was found in the foreheads of the beast revelation that actually comes out of the ocean. The Baphomet, you want me to talk about that?
Sure, go ahead, talk about Baphomet for a minute.
It's an obscure and difficult to understand symbol as far as like its early origins. Nobody knows exactly where it came from. They do know that the Templars encountered it while in the Middle East. They do think that the name Baphomet might be a corruption of a couple of different names, but it really doesn't matter because the number now and the symbol now represents the goat of Mendes. It is Church of Satan's belief amongst the scholars within it that its earliest origin is the Ram of Mendes, Om, A-U-M, who was the symbol of lust and carnality, whose nome was in the center of Egypt, which says a lot about the particular perspectives of the Egyptians at that time. This is like in some of its earliest dynasties prior to the building of the pyramids.
October 13th, the day that we are here today, Columbus Day, is also a significant day for the Templars. What happened on October 13th?
Well, you have the death and the trials and death of Jacques de Molay, and who went on to bequeath some of his material into esoteric orders, including the Church of Satan, who ended up with one of his swords, and that is 216 days today, or 216 years today. 6 plus 1 being 7, and the 2. 9 being the most significant number that you will actually find in Satanism because it's the number of the ego. 9 permutated by any use of it, whether it is added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided, well, it can be broken back down to the prime number of 9 again. So the only number that does that is the only number it returns to itself.
So evil 9 is what Satanists believe is the number that is evil.
Well, 666 actually can be broken back down to 9 as well.
Sure it can. If you break it down to 18, it's 8 plus 1 is 9, right? This is a picture of me with Hecate, who is she's a Thelemic priestess, and she was at EsoZone, and we got to know each other really well. She was really a friendly person, and we sipped a lot of coffee together, a lot of Turkish coffee together. And one of the things that she's holding up a Baphomet in a frame. I think it's kind of funny, you always have to get to know satanic women because they can go through their purse, see lipstick, credit card. Oh, my picture of Baphomet, I have it right here. And she happened to have a picture of Baphomet. There's a reason why she's holding this picture of Baphomet. We were drinking coffee together at EsoZone, and after we drank the coffee, she said to me, she says, I make a habit of reading the grounds that are in the coffee cup. So if you turn your cup over, Clyde, I'll be able to read the grounds, and I'll be able to give you something significant that you'll have to guide yourself by for the next week. That's one of the reasons why I'm talking about what I'm talking about here, because what had happened is that when she happened to turn over the cup, you notice that in the cup sits a Baphomet. You see the horns, the skull, and just so you want to see a comparison, there's the comparison. You can see that Baphomet is sitting there in the cup. That was formed randomly at EsoZone. This is an anomaly. It's like finding Jesus in your tortilla. I happen to find the devil in my cup. Isn't that amazing? I really thought that was amazingly freaky. I mean, there's a little bit more comparison for you. You see Baphomet sitting in the coffee cup, and there's Baphomet sitting there in the picture frame. It's really amazing. It gave me the willies. I mean, wouldn't that give you the willies? I mean, if you were to go, you're gathering with all these intellectual individuals, all of these people that are magicians, and all these people that are what you see as being very intellectual and knowing the esoteric knowledge. And you're having coffee with this woman, and all of a sudden you look into your mug and you see the Baphomet. It's just an amazing experience. Now, the Baphomet, as Rex has told you, the Baphomet is hidden in a lot of things that are American. And it's because our founding fathers were in the same, I guess, in the same mindset as the Templars, in the same mindset as the Masons. What about our founding fathers?
Well, it's interesting to note that and this year, on April 30th, May 1st, which is Walpurgisnacht, which is the most sacred day to Satanists, at least Church of Satan Satanists, there was a ritual that took place in England. We actually gained access to the early caves that were used by Ben Franklin, the founding fathers of the United States, and were actually able to perform a ritual there. These were the individuals who were specifically involved in the designing of this country, both its spirit and its mentality. So it's no wonder that, in fact, Anton talked fondly about how he liked the symbol of Uncle Sam, because he looked so much like a goat. And there was a reason why he did, because he was patterned after the goat of Mendes. And we feel that very strongly that Ben Franklin, being the bon vivant and indulgent individual that he was, who was very anti-Christian, would have been quite happy with a United Satanic States of America.
Well, Columbia is the mythological name, and the goddess, the mythological goddess of death, is actually the real name of America, right?
I'm sorry?
Columbia, the real name of America.
Yes.
Why would you think George Washington
It's called
posed...
the District of Columbia for a reason.
Right. Why did George Washington pose as Baphomet? Do you have any clue?
Well, because he was a Mason, and the Masons understood a few things about magic. And the symbol that he's making there is the Salve Coagula, as above, so below. As exterior, so interior. As in the macrocosm, as into the microcosm. And that symbol has to do with the understanding of the parlet of equilibrium, the balance and balancing forces within the universe, light and dark, good and evil, left and right, hard, soft, masculine, feminine, etc., etc.
Okay. Now, there's a reason why we're telling you all this and showing you all these images of the Baphomet and what it all means. Because today, 216 years ago today, the United States is celebrating a milestone. And that is that on October 13, 1792, 216 years ago today, they dedicated the capstone at the White House. The cornerstone of the White House was laid in the head of Baphomet. And on this day, I can promise you that many of our leaders were plotting to carry out certain things that are going to transpire within the next few weeks. Probably even tomorrow. We're getting close to the time where plans are going to be made where they are going to start declaring their orders, and they're going to start carrying out these orders. Now, this is the part of the presentation where I have to then sit down and let the rest of the program turn it over to a very capable man, Mr. Freeman Fry. Here you go.
Well, we're considering 10/13. Today is the infamous Friday the 13th, although it's not Friday. But Friday the 13th was 10/13/1307, the day they killed Jacques de Molay and the rest of the Templars at the stake, except for those that escaped to Ireland and Scotland. Some believe that's where the Scottish Rite and York Rite Freemasonry come from. At least they were influenced. 1013 is a very interesting day today. The things that have occurred on 1013, Nero took Rome on 1013. The Fatima meeting with the Virgin Mary was on 1013. The cornerstone to our capital was 1013. Today, Mercury begins to not be retrograde, so I might be able to get some words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, and it's a full moon. Now let's consider this Columbus Day. Columbia is one of my prime studies, and you'll see her up here. Columbus Day was declared October 13th by George W. Bush, and we're going to get a little deeper into W and what he means. But if you have a look here, this is our goddess, Columbia. You might recognize her from the Starbucks logo. She's based off a fish goddess, a goddess of Atlantis, a goddess from ancient past, connecting her with merfolk. In Egypt, the Mer was known as a pyramid, or the pyramid of Mer, so you could call her pyramid folk. But what you'll see here is the tower where Charles Whitman sacrificed some people before her, and just below that tower is George Washington. And then in front of the tower is our goddess, Columbia, who's being drawn forth by fishmen riding fish horses. And to her left, you'll see a pentagram, and to her right, a shell. Of course, the symbols of Texaco and shell. But these symbols are also the symbols of Venus. And you'll find that Venus makes a pentagram each 4 years when viewed from Earth. The shell has always been a symbol of Venus. Venus, if you look it up in the dictionary, is actually Lucifer. Wait a minute. Our goddess Columbia is Lucifer? Well, where does the name America come from, this Mer of land? Well, if we look into it, you'll find that it was the Templars that were chasing a star, and they called it Murica. This star just happens to be Venus. Guess what? Your nation's named after Lucifer. So the belief systems that are inherent in our lives, in our society, our civilization, have been passed down through time and into today. There is a reason there's a pyramid on your dollar bill. And as you watch throughout time, as the belief systems are passed, they're always the largest building in town, and so the pyramids were standing as the gods ruled. Then the church took over, and the steeple was the largest. Then the banks took over, and they were the largest. Finally, you look around today, look for your next Lord, or your next L, next Tel, is the phone companies towering over the banks. Who owns all your stadiums? So as I started to look into the concepts that were creating our reality, these people are our reality manufacturers. They have written our language. They have crafted our government. And they have a secret agenda that is esoteric. It's occult. It's hidden from all of us. But they put it out just so that we know. And I actually believe that part of the reasons that they promote their agenda, although covertly, is so that we give our free will agreement. I do think there is a spiritual war here, and that they have to convince us to agree. And so right now they're trying to have us agree that we will all die, which is kind of a bad state to be. Now these guide stones are written in 8 different languages, and what we have here is the frequency of language and the creators of our language. The English language was mostly crafted by Shakespeare, who is actually a code name for Sir Francis Bacon, a fine Rosicrucian. And I find that this is a heavy, heavy town of Rosicrucians. There's a lot of Rosicrucianism here in Portland. Just recently saw Solomon's Temple here in Portland. So what you'll see on these guide stones as they list the new guidelines for life, and what we have is limit the population to 500 million as step A. Step B is guide reproduction wisely. These guys are all about genetics. If you look at our presidents, 51% of them have belonged to a single fraternity, but all of them belong to a single bloodline, or a bloodline that can be traced back to Charlemagne and back into the ancients. So these guide stones have been placed up in Alberta, Georgia, just on the side of the road. You wouldn't even notice them if you didn't know they were there. And they were put up by an anonymous man that decided to go by R.C. Christian. Well, R.C. Christian just happens to be the code for Christian Rosencreutz, who is the mythical founder of the Rosicrucian order. So on these, they tell us that they're going to create a world court. They're going to create a new language. and they're going to unite humanity, but only after it's down to 500 million. That's 93% of us missing. So as I looked and looked, I found that we had an agenda going on, and everyone in America believed that they were in control of their lives, in control of what they could be. We were told you could be the president, you could be an astronaut, you could be whatever you want to be if you swear at the altar. You first must go step up and swear at the Masonic altar before you're going to be president, or you're going to be an astronaut, or maybe even a billionaire. But what I noticed was each and every corporate logo that I found, I can absolutely classify within Masonic ritual. You can see this on my films at freemantv.com. So Columbus, this idea that Columbus came to us and brought us this great new nation where the streets were paved of gold, this was planned long ago. And the Templars, the Phoenicians, the many different races and people had come to the West, and the maps were known. The maps have been there. The Piri-Riez map that's shown here is one of an ancient map that was then copied off of an even more ancient map showing the Western continent. They knew America was here. This had been planned long ago. One man named Manly P. Hall outlines it in The Secret Destiny of America, how the Order of the Quest came and established America. By the way, one of the symbols for the Templars, they were mostly into gold and arches. So, as I started to decipher all these symbols, codes, and everything I saw around me, from Starbucks to Texaco to Target, you know why they have that sun sign? That's a sexual symbol. Target, right? Well, as I got around and around to the different corporate logos, I came to Philip 66, and I said, what was Prince Philip trying to say here? So simply enough, I went to the Magician's Dictionary and I looked up in the number 66, you know, easy enough. Well, guess what? It's the number of the Freemasonic Great Work. And this is the number that they use when they're encoding certain negative frequencies, I've noticed, because it also is known as the Quillipoth in magic, but what we would know as the dark side of the force, or the dark side of the tree, or even satanic forces. So 66 in Hebrew, now what you got to realize, and most Masons themselves, unless they've gone ahead and read Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, won't realize that they are practicing an ancient Hebrew form of mysticism known as Kabbalism. But it's well laid out in all of their books, and if they just read more, they would know. So when you're trying to decipher a lot of these symbols, you must take it to Hebrew. And so therefore in Hebrew, 6 equals V, therefore W equals 66. So as you look around and you realize that when Hitler came to play, now he came up through the Thule Society, another occult society, and they have their own religion. They believe in Atlantis. They believe in inner Earth. They believe in extraterrestrials and flying saucers. When Hitler came, his war machine was once again coded with the 66, the VV. But these two V's were interlaced in their corporate logo, making 666. How many hippies do you think running around their little Volkswagens realize they got 666 on their... And you'll also notice that Philip's 66 crest also has 6 points, and therefore another coded 666. And when you see W standing here before the Woodrow Wilson Science Center, you'll see that his W's are also 666, and he was the one that brought us the lovely Federal Reserve and put the pyramid in front of us. So that... With this knowledge, I was able to predict through political means and esoteric means that W was going to be railroaded into office. I knew that they needed our hearts to be lost, and so first they killed the man with the Monica Lewinsky scandal and mentioned cigars on live national television and asking him where he had inserted it. I said, they don't do this to the president. This is, they're bringing down the man, Bill Clinton, our ideal of the president. The man's man, right? Or the people's man. And then, so the next step, obviously, was to force a president into office. And so when I heard this W come, and I said, well, he's the 66. He'll be forced into office. They made it obvious for everyone to know by forcing him through his brother, Jeb Bush. But this was a conspiracy within the conspiracy. Jeb Bush was supposed to make you angry. This whole system was supposed to make you angry. W is the antichrist of this power structure. He's not an antichrist, he's an idiot. He's a evil person made to make America evil. You know, they're casting spells within consciousness. So in order to keep these spells going, they do high-profile rituals right before us all the time. And if you look at Walt Disney, the man behind the mask, you'll find him behind many monarch mind control slaves and even trauma-based mind control victims like Britney Spears and Anna Nicole. Look again at the movies like V for Vendetta and The Matrix, who were put out by Village Roadshow Pictures, whose symbol just happens to be 6 V's. Look at CNN's logo and you take it like a magician and you flip it around and it becomes WD. Who owns CNN but Walt Disney? Look at all of the pop stars that come before us, and they are actually consciousness programming into WD in magic means sorcery, the symbol of 66, the W, and D means door. So this is the sorcerer's door into our heads, and absolutely what we're seeing before us with rituals like Britney Spears at the MTV Awards being passed the top hat by Madonna. This was a high-profile ritual being performed before us. The death of Anna Nicole, all I can say is go to freemantv.com and read it, because that story is too long to tell, and it's amazing. But what they'll do is they'll use predictive programming, consciousness programming, reality manufacturing. And so when they put out the new movie, Revenge of the Sith by George Lucas, the latest Star Wars, they actually show us the very downfall of America and into an evil empire. You'll realize that General Grievous is Osama bin Laden, that's why he has a cough. But when the Emperor came to take over and he decided to kill all the people that might do good, he said, execute order 66. W kills the Jedi. So we see the symbolism showing up on all our government structures. Everywhere I look, I find more convincing evidence to show us that there's more going on here. And this is the very same symbolism of the passing of the goddess. Madonna went on to become Esther, who is Ishtar, who is Ashtar, who is Columbia, and passed her Madonna-ship on to Britney Spears. But Britney did not want this power. She freaked out, and what did she do? She went and dyed her hair brown so that they couldn't use her in the ritual magic. But when that didn't work, she shaved her head, and that didn't work, so she ran into a mental institution and she scrawled 666 on her forehead and tried to commit suicide, because I believe she was terrified by the power she had been given. Go. So this death goddess is encoded all around us everywhere. Anna Nicole was a sacrificial goddess. Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, these are all sacrificial goddesses. And if you go around to all of our war memorials around America, this one is in Jackson, Mississippi, which is a very interesting esoteric town. And you'll find this death goddess always with the dead soldiers. And what they do is they get you to harness your energy for this goddess, for the Columbia, for the spirit and pride of America, and get you to go do their dirty work. You think you're doing the right thing. That's the only way they can convince humans to do these horrible things, is to make you believe it was the right thing to do. What you'll notice on these statues is that there are many fasces, and actually the union of corporate and state is fascism. And if you look into my corporate logo studies, you'll know we've always lived in a fascist country. So I started to notice the Hebrew connections and the connections with the goddess, and what I came to was this idea of the Shekinah, the Holy Spirit. Now the Freemasons are based out of Solomon's Temple. That's where you would be doing your ritual. And as I say, Solomon's Temple stands right here in Portland, Oregon. And Solomon's Temple was built to house the Ark of the Covenant. What I consider the first weapon of mass destruction ever given to mankind, because that's what the Hebrews used it for. They would place it out in front of them, and they would slaughter all the people that came before them. The Ark of the Covenant was a weapon, and they had to house this weapon, so it was stuck into Solomon's Temple, so that it wouldn't do more damage. Well, the spirit that was around the Ark of the Covenant was known as the Shekinah in Hebrew. If you ask the Freemason what a Shekinah is, he would tell you it is the spirit of brotherhood that surrounds the altar in the Masonic lodge. Well, it didn't take me long to realize when they said that the shock and awe was going to take on Baghdad, that they were talking about this Holy Spirit, the goddess, the Shekinah. So then it didn't take me even much longer to realize that at this time Saddam Hussein was rebuilding the Tower of Babel and the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. And he was declaring himself to be Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. This was front page news. When the Shekinah, the Shekinah, came down and struck Nebuchadnezzar, Saddam Hussein, they used the mother of all bombs, which they call, of course, in military acronym, the Moab. And if you go to the story of Nebuchadnezzar, you'll find that he was taken out by the Moabites. And when you look a little further, you'll find that he is the one named Lucifer in the Bible. As I got deeper and deeper into this study and the understanding that they were trying to give me, and this pentagram continually coming up and these constant connections to fish people, I started to look deeper, and I found there was a significant star to all of these groups, to the Ordo Templi Orientis, to the Freemasons, to the Egyptians, to the Mayan. The star was known as Sirius. And Sirius is the blazing star of Freemasonry, and that is more likely what your symbol means when you see that star. And if you look into the Egyptian hieroglyph, it's the obelisk, the dome, and the pentagram up there under Night of the Sun. When you look downtown in any capital, in Washington, D.C., you have Washington Monument, the dome, and the pentagram. These are life-size hieroglyphs to the star Sirius. Sirius just happened to be known as Isis in the Egyptian pantheon, and therefore our goddess Columbia, too, is a representation of Sirius. When you look into Sirius, it gets a bit weird, and I pulled up a book that was written by Robert Temple. It was known as The Sirius Mystery. Now, this book was so amazing that Isaac Asimov said it doesn't have a single mistake in it. When we looked at this book, The Sirius Mystery, it was about this ancient tribe of Mali, Africa, the Dogon tribe, and they had all sorts of astronomical data about Sirius. And when the researchers that were down there studying the Dogon asked them, well, how do you know about Sirius? We ourselves have only seen Sirius in the 1970s. They said, well, the Nomos came and told us. They were a fish being that came up out of the water to teach us our sacred mysteries and to teach us how to build our homes. And I thought it quite interesting that they taught them to build sandcastles. Well, I went to and I found that the symbol the Dogon had for the star Sirius is that little hook and line. And I found this symbol inside the Egyptian room at the Philadelphia Lodge, Benjamin Franklin's Ferry Lodge. And in that lodge is much, much encoded knowledge. Well, it turns out that I myself had some hidden knowledge, and there is a thing known as remote viewing, psychic nature that we all have. The government has now established a corporation, a psychic corporation called SciTech, because they found we can all be trained to be psychic. Certain people have it already, and I seem to have it. At 10 years old, I drew a picture with these flying space shuttles fighting a flying serpent, and its craft in the middle. And I have found all of these things to be real. I found the symbol that I put on each of the space shuttles was the Dogon symbol for Sirius. The craft that you see there it was filmed by the Columbia Space Shuttle, and then the dragon, or the Draconians, that are dealing with the perhaps exopolitical spectrum of Sirius and Alpha Draconis. But consider the names of our space shuttles. The Columbia Endeavor for the discovery of Atlantis. All around our nation, these people are putting up architecture that vibrates in particular frequencies, and this one is in Nashville. Now in Nashville, you'll find the Parthenon with a 42-foot golden goddess inside. You'll find the Temple to Mars, which is a war memorial. And then when you come down to the Capitol, you'll find this device. It is an ancient seal of Solomon, and we're back to Solomon, and Solomon was a worshiper of Ishtar, Columbia, and it was also the place where the Masons worship. This seal that was placed is a seal of Solomon to bind spirits. It is a large courtyard out in front of the Nashville Capitol, shaped as this seal to bind spirits, and it lays upon a Native American burial ground. It even says right on it, thousands of bodies are interred here, and then there are sulfur rivers running through it. It's a harmonic device. It has 7 portals at the amphitheater towards the Capitol, and as you get to the head of the thing, the top of the keyhole, there are 3 pentagrams. And just as I noticed here in Portland in the Times Square, you can stand in the center of those pentagrams and everything you say comes back at you from those 25 columns, 50 columns. And they have the exact same device here in Portland, I just learned today. So 666 seemed to keep coming up, and it kept being a symbol that I saw used for darkness, and even though they were encoding it right in front of us, I found it on the CERN logo. Of course, it's a 666 with a hyperdimensional portal. Now if you look, that's the particle accelerator with the 666. CERN is the creator of the World Wide Web. W also can equal 6, and therefore www equals 666. CERN was the creator of the grid, which is the new World Wide Web, which isn't for our use, but is able to generate holograms. It's the internet on steroids. It is the mega web. It's all dedicated fiber optic lines. And the grid has the ability to bring on what we'll know as Armageddon. They now have the ability to bring what we could call Project Bluebeam, with holograms, with weather modification, with the neurophone transmitting messages into your head. So with all of this going on, and as I witness and I see that these men are digging deep underground military bases, they're putting seed vaults in Norway inside of mountains, they're preparing for something. I watch as they create a high-frequency activable research program known as HARP, which also goes back to Lucifer, that they use this to cause storms, to manipulate storms. It can cause earthquakes and floods. It was reported right on the USA Today that our government now has the ability to act like God. They have the ability to make things appear that aren't appearing, that aren't really there. They have the way of making natural disasters occur. They have all these things, and now they're trying to open a portal through CERN with the Large Hadron Collider. Thankfully, their magnetics got shut down, and they had to postpone for 2 months. Who knows what could have happened? They don't know. When they turn these things on, they have no idea. And so, to bring it all into conclusion, into understanding, is this idea as we're moving into the new age of Aquarius, the new age of mankind and time. The Mayans taught me how we need to use our consciousness to heal the planet. And all of this made complete sense to me as I looked at the tools and methods of those that were creating our reality. That what they were really doing was controlling our imaginations. And that what they want us to do is just fall in line and keep going the direction that they want us to go. They use many spells to keep us in that direction. They use politics, economics. Money is a horrible spell to make people do things they wouldn't normally do. Humans are good, and that's the real key factor here, is that we are being used in these methods by belief systems that have been crafted for us to fulfill an agenda that's not helping us. And we can actually solve these problems by reverence, by understanding, by loving one another, and bringing about hope to each other. I promise you, Obama and McCain are not going to bring you hope nor change.
Thank you. It's Freeman. Give him a big hand for that research. What I want to do now, we have a little bit of time because we ran late, and we're going to get karaoke from hell in just a bit. I want Rex Church to come up and speak for a moment about what he's planning to do for 2012. He's creating something called the Ragnarok engine. He's going to give you a few details about that, and then he wants to give his idea of what the significance of this whole day, Columbia's Day, is all about the goddess of death, the plotting of what is to come in the future. As Freeman said, the choices are not choices. They have sent these for you, and they're going to lead you towards our doom. We need to take control, and we need to do it now. Let's give Rex Church the floor, and then we'll wrap up in just a minute. Give him a hand.
I'll try to make this brief so that you can all sing and dance, and fiddle while Rome burns. I've said this before, and I think it bears saying again. There was a magician by the name of Francis Barteau who said, "And Dagon will come again, as will mighty sorceries. And the great beasts of the deep have gone about their pathway of destruction and far worse than anticipated. Hold to the powers that I have given you, for only by first being a monster shall the magician escape." And I've said before, the only way to survive what is coming is to become even more satanic, and you might already be. All human beings being the offspring of Lucifer, the offspring of knowledge, the great cosmic joke, as H.P. Lovecraft talked about, a joke that got out of hand in the hands of the gods. Talked about Dagon, and the Dogon tribe. It's interesting to note that Sirius is also known as the Dog Star. So you got the Dog Star, the Dagon Star, Dog Star. So talking about these domes, talking about protective aspects of these great secrets which the government holds. I believe that a lot of these tools are things that are being used by an apostate ideology, things that actually were meant to be only distributed amongst a certain few, got out of hand. And others took it and decided to use it. 2012, 2 plus 1, 3 plus 2, 5, the number of the magician. That's my personal number. As a representative of that number, what I'm planning on doing for that particular day is I've been working for the last, since 1996 on the creation of what some people have said is a portal that has somewhat of a resonant relativity to the CERN super collider, except I'm not smashing atoms or subatomic material together. I'm creating, these things. I spoke somewhat passionately at EsoZone about the creation of a device that would be able to bring about devils, demons, perhaps psychogones, things that artists and magicians, have tried to create for centuries, but in a way that would allow the machine to actually be a living being. It wouldn't be a Stargate, it would be a creative and a creator engine. So it's both a creator, an engine of creation, and an engine of destruction. So my plans for that day are to implement this device, hopefully here in the Pacific Northwest, or we have a place that's chosen that involves a war memorial, which is also the symbol of the Stonehenge end of time and the cyclic aspects of time. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Mary Hill in Washington. Anybody here been to Mary Hill? You ever seen the Stonehenge there? I'm already in negotiations with the Washington State Arts Council to be able to demonstrate and unleash this machine there as an art object. I think that there will be significant changes, both psychically and etherically, that won't be seen immediately by people who would just see what was going on there, but I believe that they will have definitive results. The other onlookers will simply see a machine that looks weird and seems to have a lot of hoopla or hyperactivity about it. So anyway, you should definitely visit Freeman.com.
Freeman TV.
FreemanTV.com. Advocate and hold up everything that this good man Clyde Lewis is doing. And if you want to walk on the dark side and you want to see what we would like to see the world become, then you might want to just stay in touch with my interactions with him and go to diabolosrex.com on the web. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rex. Well, as you can see, tonight's show was very heavily there's a lot of heavy stuff being thrown at you. There's symbols, signs, words, triggers, numbers. All these things were a lot for us to compute. The reason why it's been sent out is because you're going to be noticing these things. You're going to be seeing these things in everything you do. When you pay your taxes, when you sleep, when you eat, when you walk around, when you watch television, you're going to be seeing these nuances being thrust at you, being thrown at you, and you will know them as you see them. You need to be aware of the signs and all of the guideposts, because what is coming, you're going to have, for what is coming, you have to be fully aware. As magicians begin their magic, you have to be even bigger magicians, and you have to know what spells are being cast. It is us literally telling you how the magician pulls the rabbit out of the hat, how he saws the woman in half. That's what the Ground Zero Lounge is for. It's to gather together and express viewpoints between all of us, because we all come from different belief systems, and we need to pull together instead of pulling apart. As I have said many times, the revolution has begun. They are doing the revolution. We're just laying back and letting them walk all over us. And we need to change, and we need to change now. What do you think about that? Hell yeah. All right. One more thing before karaoke from hell. I was discussing that we were going to go to the mountain on the 18th, if weather is permitting. Now, if it's snowing up there, we're certainly not going to be looking at UFOs. If you would like to reserve, if you'd like to make reservations at the Trout Lake Motel, and you have a pen, write this down. The number at the Trout Lake Hotel or Motel is 509-395-2300. How's that for coincidence? It's on 2300 Highway 141 in Trout Lake, Washington. Or you can camp out at the East City Ranch right there on the property for $25. As I said before, we are going to be leaving for the Ross Island Grocery, caravanning up at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 18th. And if you want to come later, you're more than welcome to. There are going to be a lot of paranormal investigators there. This is going to be a huge gathering. Once again, we'd like to thank Rex Church for being here at the Ground Zero Lounge. Give him a hand. We'd also like to thank Freeman, coming all the way out from Austin, Texas, for his wonderful presentation. We'd like to thank the organizers of EsoZone for having me speak and having these wonderful gentlemen speak us here for EsoZone. And Bill, thank you for taping the show tonight, and we will see you next week here at the Ground Zero Lounge. Good night.
All right, now it's time to fiddle while Rope burns.
What's that? That's right. Fiddle while rope burns, exactly.